I want to do an episode on this continual dismantling, which has been pretty unbelievable. And you know, I thought I had the worst ceremony. No, I think I just had one. It was much worse than anything I've ever had. But let me just catch up first on the dismantling of what's going on. And so what's interesting is, like, for the last 3 months since I got back from Niue, my phone just stopped ringing, literally. And you know, everything that's come up as far as work-wise hasn't quite worked out, and there's just kind of like, you know, being in the middle of the ocean with no wind. It's like, and no matter how much you paddle or you kind of like row this boat, it's not going anywhere. And it's almost like the universe has you on standstill. But it's actually a bigger theme that I had not recognized, and that, you know, she basically told me you have to look at. Now, and that theme is why I do what I do. So growing up was pretty awful and terrifying, and one of the things that was always kind of on me was, you know, you have to be a success. You have to make us look good. You have to carry this family forward. And there was a constant sort of terror around, you know, all of this, because, you know, I had desire to please, because there was no love coming from anywhere and there was no attention. So, and also there was attention, but the attention was around, you need to do well. Not for you, for us. You've got to make us look good. You need to make us look successful. And I had struggled very hard, you know, and had done really well at school, and then I was supposed to go to Cambridge University, and, you know, major fuck up, didn't get in. I didn't, whatever, I think I had a kind of mini breakdown, really, didn't get in. And so I felt so humiliated because I kind of failed them, that I came to America to paint, supposedly, and eventually ended up doing architecture. And painting was really what I wanted to do, and I think painting was part of just the self-discovery of, like, well, who the fuck am I? In painting I found a kind of a freedom and a liberation that I couldn't physically, because I couldn't speak out. and there was a kind of like, there was a censorship on everything around me. But when I was on the canvas, it was like I could explore, you know, without any kind of barrier or kind of border crossing. So, but anyway, I decided to do what they wanted me to do, essentially, to make them look good. And this identity is an identity created out of trauma. I mean, I really don't give a shit anymore, and I haven't for a while. What I do has tons of responsibility, loads of liability, and I just don't care enough. I don't care enough for your bathroom to be lovely or your office to work. It's like, it's insane. And so she's kind of stripped me of that. She's like said, look, you've got to look at what you do, because it's part of the trauma. And I'm just, you know, the energy has been completely like taken out of it. Like the electricity, anything that was kind of connected to it, it's gone. And it's been really fucking scary, because it's like, well, that's who I am, right? I mean, for God's sake, I'm the showman. I'm the showman. That's what I do. I show up and I fix things, and I, you know, make this work for you, and you say, oh, isn't that great, Maria? And I make you feel good. But there's nothing in there. I mean, I don't really believe in it. I don't really give a shit. I mean, I do it really well, don't get me wrong, but it's not something that's meaningful to me. Again, it's part of kind of the airbag that when you're traumatized, it just blows up into this robot, and you do whatever you need to do to ensure that you get to exist, that you get to have an outline. So that's been really unsettling, like, what the fuck? And then the second thing that she's made me do is, I don't like asking for help. It's not in my ego's vocabulary. We don't ask for help. We have to be strong. We have to know it all and have it all under control. And I've had to ask for help. And when I've been taken to that edge, it's like fucking dying for me. It's like, I do not want to do this. It's like going in for open heart surgery. It's so, the feeling of it, it's really horrendous. So what she's shown me essentially is very interesting, is if you're not doing the showman thing, like, oh, I'm gonna build you all this, then there's nothing but this terrified kid that has no support, no real community of people to help her. And so, you know, you've got to deal with this because this is all wrong. But what's more interesting is that underneath that was an even bigger story that, again, I thought had been fixed. Not so fast. So in that seeing, I've had even more anger for these fucking parents. I mean, crazy anger. I see more of, like, you know, it's like you're a map and you're only living on the edge of it. Suddenly you're beginning to see the whole map. And in that anger, there's been a lot of ceremonies of just grief, just monumental grief and sadness, and really the sense of a broken heart, really deeply broken heart. So after one of these ceremonies, the next day I was like, great, you know, I felt really energized, you know, because every time you know, what she does, I see, is that she kind of, well, hundreds and hundreds of layers. I mean, like a Russian doll, there's like layers and they're all alive. And in order to basically tear one of them down, it's usually a feeling, and then there's stuff in ceremony, and then the next day there's more feeling, and then there's more stuff in ceremony, and then perhaps there's a dream, and then she throws a dynamite, and then some huge thing is revealed. And it's just like archaeological dig, getting deeper and deeper and deeper into the foundation of how you're made. And so I'd had all this grief and I was feeling good, and then Friday I had what I can only describe as the worst ceremony ever. It was 2 hours of intense physical movement, pain, and it felt like 1,000 spirits. Now, I call them 1,000 spirits, but they're really, it's like energetic parasites, and she's pulling them out. I could literally be pulled out my ovaries. Like I was keeping the information stored in my organs. I mean, what? Yeah, literally. And so in order for it to be pulled out of my organs, she was literally shifting me, and it was painful and difficult. But anyway, there were 2 visions to start with. It was non-stop pain. And the 2 visions were, one was in this town that I lived in Spain when I was very little. There was a place called the Casa de Socorro, which is a place where, you know, if anybody died or if there was an accident, it's like an emergency room, but it was like in the main, it was like a main building in this town. And I don't know why, but I was always fascinated by it. You know, people drowned. I mean, I suppose it's because it's all about the terror, right? And it was also close to my grandfather's house. And the other one was, so when my father died, you know, we were behind him in the car, behind the hearse, the car with his coffin, and his coffin was tiny. It was like so weird. And then suddenly the car stops over a bump and somebody like peers in, and I'm totally embarrassed about the whole thing. Like, oh my God, someone's peering at this tiny coffin. I mean, like, what the fuck? But it felt like energetically there was something still holding on. So after tons of just this energy coming through, I finally become this little 4-year-old, little 3-year-old. Now I was, from 0 to 3 or 4, I lived in Spain because my father was in London and my mother was in Spain, staying with her family and her brothers. And there was a room in the house, and there was a pretty big house, a typical Mediterranean house, a big courtyard in the middle, rooms on the outside, called La Despensa, which is where they put the food. And in that room, I was being abused. It was dark, my little legs were quivering, my hands were quivering, and they were sexually abusing me. It was, again, it wasn't a thought, it wasn't, I was 3D, I literally, I was her. I was her. And I was like, even just whispering under my, like, oh, I was like, oh, saying things, I was like, Mama, like, where's my mother? So, yeah, I'm just like, I mean, anyway, at the final ceremony, like, these little girls came out of this whorehouse. It felt like a whorehouse, like I was in some kind of pedophile's dream. I mean, it was awful. I was coming out of all these rooms. And, yeah, I was being abused in that house. And, you know, I literally was her. It wasn't a vision, it wasn't a thought. I was literally, she was, as they were pulling these energies out of me that were holding on, she showed up. Like she'd been hidden. That memory was hidden in my system, in my physical, energetic system. And for 2 hours, she was literally trying to unblock in my system, like this energetic, like parasites from my mouth, to get this little girl to kind of rise up and to show up. And that was pretty fucking unreal. And I think, you know, I was like down for like a day. I was like sad. It was incredibly sad. And again, you know, anger, like where was a parent? Like, where the fuck were they? And just that these people, just these predators were just wandering around. And, you know, just how unsafe you are. I mean, the lack of safety, the lack of parents, the inability to talk. I mean, just so much stuff. So, but I think it reached this incredibly critical point, because from the moment the abuse happens to now, you're 300 miles away. You're so separate from who you are, you know. I'll put my hands here. And what happens, I think, is that you fragment, right, into different pieces. And she literally is putting me together. It's like she's bringing all of this together. And in fact, in the ceremonies, she's making me make all these circles around my face, around my head, around my mouth. And she's basically saying to me, you know, Humpty Dumpty, I'm putting you back together, which is kind of crazy and incredibly wonderful. And, you know, so again, she's only showing up, let me just put this up. She's only giving me what I can handle. And I recognize that you can't let all of this just come out. But it's kind of it's like a butterfly. It's like, you know, caterpillar, butterfly. It's like, it's a slow transformation, but I can feel it. It's almost like, where have I been? Like this whole, like who has been here? It's like this robot has been here. This thing that, you know, was trying to survive, was trying to avoid the truth. And I was walking around New York today thinking, where the fuck have I been? Well, buried. I mean, I think the last ceremony was coming out of the ground. It was like, yeah, buried. So, you know, yeah, I mean, can it get any worse? I don't know. But it is pretty astonishing that, what's really astonishing is that there are many ways to have dealt with this horror. Commit suicide, stick a needle in your arm, you know, or sit in a cushion, broke, and get cleaned up, or be in a hospital with some horrible disease. Like, I get it. If these things are in your system and you're holding on to this kind of blockage, and this, you're not here. You're not fully here. I really feel like 10% has been functioning. The rest has just been shut down, you know. So I'm talking about it because I feel that, you know, the clarity and kind of the always surrendering and the always returning to base camp. You know, before it was always like you're like on the end of a ping pong ball, you're just going out. I always felt like I was just going out, going out, going out. I need to go there, I need to go here, I need to do this. And now, having, she's so cleansed so much of, you know, because you get evicted when you get abused. You're not home, because you're not connected to your heart. You can't be, it's too terrifying. So the way that she reconnects you, it's almost like you begin to gain power in your center. And there's a stillness and there's an incredible intensity of power, because now you can sit through anything. You can sit through the pain, you can sit through the fear, you can sit through it's like you're not going to die, which as a child is all you feel about. I'm going to die, and I've got to go do this, I've got to go do that, I've got to do whatever. You're always on the verge of death, which is what I felt growing up. So it is an incredible journey, but an incredibly liberating place to think that, wow, I can be like a bottle just thrown on the floor and broken, but I can also put myself back together. Well, okay, let me just rephrase. Only in the other dimension, all right? It's only, and that's what's amazing to me. I couldn't have built that in this dimension. I had no power. That person that was built in another dimension. So in order to heal her, I have to go into another dimension, which is pretty amazing. And again, I do not go there alone. I'm only there because of the ayahuasca and the great Indians and all the guides that show up. But this incredible access to this other dimension, there's no way I could heal unless I was taken there and I was guided. And I think we all are. I think we all are. Every single fucking human being on this planet has the power to go there. But I think ego and the terror of death of that child is so huge. And again, you have to feel the feelings. The anger, the hatred, the rage. You're going to feel it all, because that's actually where all the liberation is. So I'm incredibly grateful. And yuck to seeing more, which really was like awful. But thank you, because